Hello and welcome to Focus on CR, an in-depth look at the faculty, students, and staff of College of the Redwoods.
Hello and welcome to Focus on CR. I'm your host, Ruby Kyan Gustafson, and today we have our guest, Dr. Karen Reiss of the Biology Department. So, hi, Karen.
Hi, good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. So I just wanted to start off by getting some background information on you, if you would please, and kind of what got you into zoology and biology.
Oh boy, that's a super long story. I don't think you want the whole thing. But I've been here at CR for 18 years now. So I've been doing this for a very long time. And I actually got my undergraduate degree in chemistry, in biochemistry. But when I graduated, I couldn't tell the difference between a reptile and an amphibian, and I didn't know any trees. And I really loved chemistry, but it felt very disconnected from the world outside me. And so after graduating from college and thinking about graduate school, I just started meandering a little more towards organisms and things I could see out in the world. And my training is as a zoologist, especially mammals, but even my hobbies are going out and looking for flowers and identifying trees and going tide pooling, going backpacking, and I've just gotten more and more oriented to the organisms in the world since then.
Lovely, yeah. Is there kind of in a specific animals or a specific area that really pulled you in, or was it just the whole biodiverse world in general? Yeah,
no, it was definitely, I started small and got bigger and bigger as time went on. So when I first started graduate school, I was actually working on embryology, and I was working on some problems in some real sort of fundamental problems in how organisms develop, but we were using chickens and quails as our study animals. And so that was fun, but it panned out into something a little bit larger, and I started working with somebody who worked on mammals. And I became really obsessed for a long time with ant-eating mammals. And my PhD work was on anteaters and pangolins and ant-eating armadillos and echidnas, the spiny anteaters. And I was really interested in how evolution had shaped these convergent adaptations for eating ants. They have these incredibly long tongues. I don't know, do you know what a pangolin is? Have you ever seen?
I would love if you describe it. Yeah.
It looks like a pine cone with legs, but it's a mammal. It has a furry belly. They have sort of a long nose. They're covered with scales. And there's 7 or 8 species. I don't even know how many species they've decided there are now, but they're in Asia and Africa. And they can stick their tongue out a full body length and beyond. And they have no teeth. They just shoot their tongue out into an ant nest or a termite nest. They sort of dig a little hole, shoot their tongue out, and their tongue can kind of snake through the tunnels of the nest. And they've got this very sticky saliva. I've actually had it on my body. It's very sticky. It's better than any kind of hair gel. And the prey species just stick to their tongue and then they swallow them. And so all these different ant-eating mammals have a tongue like that, but they weren't supposed to be closely related. So it looked like a really nice example of an evolutionary adaptation that was convergent in different species. So that was really, that was really fun. And I did some field work, and I did a lot of work in museums, big natural history museums, dissecting specimens, and got my PhD, and shortly after that moved here and was looking for something that was a little closer than ant-eating mammals, which are not near Humboldt County. So then I started working on chipmunks, and that's what I've been working on for the last bit, is another evolutionary problem in chipmunk systematics, in local chipmunk systematics. There's supposedly they used to think there was one species of chipmunk from here all the way up to British Columbia. And then that was sort of revised on the basis of a genital bone anatomy. So do you know anything about genital bones?
Oh.
Yeah, most people don't know anything about genital bones. 9 or 11 times, it's not entirely clear which, but either 9 to 11 times in mammalian history, some of the tissues in the genitalia have ossified and become bony, and they can have very interesting shapes that can be used to tell species apart. And in the chipmunks, it turns out that this one contiguous group of chipmunks in the forests of the Pacific Northwest have 4 very different genital bones, and one's north of the Rogue River, one between the Rogue and the Klamath River, one between the Klamath and the Eel, and one southwest of the Eel. So I've been working on that. Nobody had looked at the genetics of those different species. So it looks like a nice model system for speciation in action. So I work with chipmunks now. I go out in the field and I look for chipmunks. It's very close, very easy.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not easy. It's really hard. There's not as many chipmunks as you would think, but it is close. So you know, I went from chemistry to embryos to mammals in the tropics, and now mammals closer to home. So it's just gotten bigger.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so it's telling you the main thing that you're learning from it or searching with your research is finding that differentiation, or what is that telling you?
Yeah, so here's the idea. If you think about what makes species separate, the basic idea in evolutionary biology is that they can't reproduce with other species, that they are sort of their own lineage, that's, you know, they're mating with each other and having offspring that are like each other. And so this business with the rivers dividing up the species makes some sense if you think about, well, what the mouth of the Eel River looked like a month ago. There's no way a chipmunk is swimming across that. There's no way that the chipmunks in Ferndale and the chipmunks in Lolita are meeting up. It's not happening. And that's what this means. It means that Ferndale and Lolita have different species. It means that Rio Dell and Scotia have different species because they can't get across the river. But if you go up to the headwaters of any of these rivers, they're just creeks with logs going across them, and it seems like there's no issue, that chipmunks would just be hopping around, going anywhere, breeding with whoever they wanted. So our basic hypothesis, and I'm working with somebody at the Smithsonian and somebody at USC, our basic hypothesis is that the species are going to be very distinct at river mouths and not so distinct up at the headwaters, and maybe even interbreeding up at the headwaters of the Klamath, the Rogue, and the Eel rivers. So it's a lot of field work, a lot of geography.
Oh, that's quite fascinating.
It's pretty
Really
fun.
Curious to see what you all find in regard to your hypothesis.
Me too.
Yeah, sure.
Me too. There's a lot of genes to sequence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, wow. So if you want to mention any other past research that you've done, I just want to give you the space right now to do that before we...
Oh, well, I mean, you know, it all seems so far away now, but it is really funny. The first job I had getting out of college was, because I had all this biochemistry background, was with an emeritus professor at Harvard Medical School. He had just retired, and he was allowed to keep his lab and hire one assistant. And it's super funny because I was working on, you know, I got a job. That's why I was doing this work. It wasn't like I was interested in this research in particular, but I was working on this weird peptide that bacteria have that he thought we absorbed through our guts to cause us to fall asleep. And what's really funny is we sort of accidentally discovered something about intestinal absorption and channels that open up in the presence of a lot of sugar that help you absorb things. And it was just panned at the time. People are like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that guy, he's old. You know, oh, what does she know? And there was this super famous UCLA physiologist that was just like, that paper is garbage. There's no way that's true. And it's become this really big deal. And the paper is cited all the time with respect to leaky gut syndrome and irritable bowel disease and hummingbird physiology. And it's very funny that something that was just sort of a fresh out of college, I got a job, we did some research, we wrote a paper, didn't think anything of it, and it ended up being controversial, and then it became dogma. So, you know, I think it's important that students know you never know what's going to come of what you're doing this year. You know, it might come back to haunt you. And I mean, it's not a problem, but it's rather amusing when I get these little alerts saying, 10 people cited you today for some paper I wrote back in 1980-something, you know, a really long time ago. But that's the only anything of significance regarding research. I mean, my life is about teaching mostly. That's, you know, I mean, the chipmunk research is, it keeps me current and it keeps me sort of, you know, out asking questions and being a scientist. But the vast majority of my time really is with my students in the classroom. So that's really my focus these days.
Yeah, so bridging off of what you just mentioned with your focus with your students, let's talk about what you teach here at CR. Let's talk about what you do in the department.
Okay. Let's see. So I teach a variety of courses for a variety of subsets of students. I do teach human anatomy in the which is mostly taken by students who are looking at becoming RNs or getting degrees in kinesiology or physical therapy. And, you know, my training is really, I mean, I say I'm a mammologist, but I'm an anatomist. I love anatomy. I love zoology. I love any anatomy. It could be humans, it could be clams, it could be worms. So humans to me are sort of a species that we know very well. And so I teach that, and I enjoy that a lot. And we do use cadavers here for that class, and I think that's a really important part of it. So I do that, and I run the cadaver lab. And then I teach zoology, which is a majors course. So any life science major has to take general zoology with a lab. And I've been teaching that since I got here. That's really what I was hired to do. And that's just the greatest course ever. That, you know, it's just, you just look at the parade of animals and how they have evolved and how they're built and how they work. And it's just so much fun watching students decide that worms are actually very interesting and complex. And there's always the hesitation to do dissections, and you know, most students end up just, whoa, look at that, you know, and they get really excited about it. So that's a big part of my load. And then I teach a California Natural History course, which is, it's a general education course, so it satisfies those GE requirements that students have, but it also is a certification course for a certificate that's offered by University of California, and it's a California Naturalist certificate. So students who take the natural history course can get their GE requirement satisfied for a life history class, but they also can get California Naturalist certification. And that's a really cool thing because it really makes a difference on their resumes if they're applying for jobs at state parks or AmeriCorps, after-school programs, student-teacher programs. It's just one more skill that it documents that they have. And that natural history course is great. We're in the field all the time, and you know, there's a lot of learning how to identify ferns and trees and frogs and salamanders and all of that, but also I really try to get them out to a lot of different habitat types because it's so diverse here in Humboldt County, and help them really understand the differences between the habitats and how that affects the organisms that live there. So that's a course I teach regularly, and I think that's zoology, human anatomy, and the natural history course are, you know, the main part of my load, usually different semesters. I do sometimes teach marine biology, and sort of ironically, after all these years, for the very first time, I'm teaching the broad general bio for non-majors, and I've never taught that course, even as a grad student. So has been interesting.
Yeah, that's a lot of different classes and knowledge that you're imparting onto this school. That's really wonderful.
Well, I mean, it's all just organisms and how they're built and how they work. I mean, I'm a real structure function person. Even when it's evolution or ecology, that's how I look at it. I look at, even when I'm thinking about trees, I'm thinking about physiology and water dynamics and how they're responding to stresses in the environment. So it's sort of all the same stuff. It's just a different orientation to a different set of students with different background and different goals. But I feel like every day I go in and I'm teaching, you know, organismal biology, which is great. I mean, I get paid to do this. It's kind of amazing.
You mentioned that when you're teaching students that sometimes you're bringing them out in the field to look at different environments and things. Where are you guys going locally?
Oh yeah, well, so for the natural history course, diversity is really important, and I can't do all these trips in one semester, but I tend to go to Table Bluff and South Spit, down to the beach at South Spit, pretty regularly, and we go out to North Malel Dunes pretty regularly. Have you ever been to North Malel? Do you know that? It's out sort of near Friends of the Dunes, and
yes,
it's extraordinary, just incredibly beautiful there. And we will go tide pooling, and we go to the Arcata Marsh and look at birds. We go up to the Arcata Community Forest and look for salamanders. We usually head up into the Jacoby Creek portion of the Arcata Community Forest, which is just a beautiful, beautiful riparian, creekside zone with just some great lessons to be learned there. And so that's always a fun trip. And we have a big all-day trip where we go up to Horse Mountain, which unfortunately this semester has been postponed apparently indefinitely because of snow. But usually that's a great trip because there's a pretty unique ridgetop community just past Horse Mountain, and I like them to see that. They see species of shrubs and trees that you normally would have to go to the Sierras or Cascades to see. So that's a pretty cool trip. So a lot of diversity in the local area, but we also spend a lot of time on campus. And that's become more conspicuous because, have you heard of the Outdoor Campus Collaborative? Do you know anything about
Briefly,
the OCC?
I'd love if you touched on that, yeah.
Well, the Outdoor Campus Collaborative is, it started almost exactly a year ago. I guess it was February when 7 people started meeting in the rain in a small room, trying to figure out how we could get more use out of the 270 acres that this campus sits on. And so much of the energy in the last 10 years, 15 years, has gone into translocating the footprint of all the college buildings because of the seismic issues that we discovered. And so rightly so, we're always building and dropping buildings and moving buildings, and that's been a huge effort. But we have 270 acres, and most of it doesn't have buildings on it. And so there were a bunch of folks who were like, we need to get out there more. There's maintenance issues, there's trail access issues, but we have this potential learning laboratory that we could really be, utilizing a lot more in forestry, natural resources, environmental science, biology, but also art, English, PE. And so this group of folks with some faculty and one of our gardeners and our cross-country coach and a student, and we were just brainstorming. But what happened was we started this thing that is now the Outdoor Campus Collaborative, and our goal is to really connect people on campus to the land more and be good stewards, to actually be teaching people how to be good stewards of this land, but also to connect more across the community and bring in folks from outside campus, whether that's for recreation or to help train students, and to be connecting just across disciplines to get to know each other as we work on projects in the outdoor campus. So it's a lot of project-based learning and a lot of collaboration across disciplines like forestry and biology and art and English, and a lot of collaboration across the community, bringing in a lot of local experts to help. So, for example, there's a big project that's been going on this semester over behind Construction Tech. There's a Redwood Park kind of area on campus, and it has a little creek running through it that feeds our ponds and some dilapidated picnic tables. And last semester we just laid a lot of groundwork doing a lot of plant and animal surveys to make sure there were no threatened or endangered species we had to be concerned about. And this semester, trail building class and construction tech class, environmental science class, forestry students, natural history students have all been working to build a pavilion for picnic tables in an outdoor classroom, a trail that leads to and from the pavilion that will connect up with what is now a defunct nature trail from 15 years ago, but next semester's trail building class will be extending the trail from the pavilion up the old nature trail, which goes up the creek. Students in my natural history course, in the environmental science course, have been doing vegetation surveys and bird surveys just to make sure we know what's there before we start renovating and restoring. The students are learning about invasive species and restoration ecology, and it's just been this amazing. It's grassroots. OCC is just a group of folks with some common values and common goals, but it's turned into all of these different projects. That's just one of them. We've got all these nest boxes out all over campus, and that was a project that was with Redwood Region Audubon Society. And students are watching the swallows build their nests and reporting those data on a national website. There's just been a lot of work going on campus that people are just getting involved in working with people in other classes, and other faculty, and faculty from Cal Poly have been coming down, and resource managers from various places around town. So it's the Outdoor Campus Collaborative has been amazing, and it started with this idea about improving access. And so what that means is that in classes like natural history and environmental science, we don't have to go all over the county. We can go birding right here. We can put down cover boards and look for salamanders right here. And so I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as the semesters wear on.
That sounds really exciting, and seems like it will help to bring the students in and be more involved with this space here.
That's the goal, and we've been surveying the students at the beginning and end of the semester about their connection to place, about their connection to the land on campus, and what we're seeing is really promising. You know, they're feeling like they know campus better. You know, we have weekly meetings. Every Wednesday at noon we meet, and the first Wednesday of every month we go for a hike. So anybody who comes gets to know some new set of trails on campus that they didn't know about before. And so students are getting to know the campus better, and they keep saying things like, I had no idea this trail was here. I didn't know this forest was here. You know, I didn't know I could do this. But also they're meeting people of like mind that they aren't necessarily in classes with. Have you ever heard of a BioBlitz? Do you know what a BioBlitz is?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I was going to ask you about it, so I would love to hear.
Okay. So we sponsored a BioBlitz. The OCC sponsored a BioBlitz 2 weeks ago, and it's basically a time-constrained event. It's usually 24 hours, where anybody who's interested comes on campus. Well, this one, I mean, you define the time range and you define the location. So our location was campus boundaries, and you set up a project on iNaturalist, which is this great worldwide biodiversity platform for you know, data storage, I guess. Observation storage is what it is. So people come on campus and just look for things. And every organism that they see, you take a picture and you upload it to iNaturalist. And what we get is a tally of all the organisms that everybody saw that day at College of the Redwoods. And so we had a BioBlitz, and I think our final tally was 287 unique species. And that was some 600-700 observations, because a lot of people saw the same things. But a bunch of students were involved. We had focus groups going out every hour to focus on fungi or lichens or trees and shrubs or salamanders or birds. And a student came up to me afterwards, the next Monday, and he said, that was the most fun. I knew a couple people from my botany class, but at the BioBlitz, I met all these other students that are interested in the same stuff I am. And I was only going to stay for an hour, and I stayed for 8 hours. And I heard that from a bunch of different people, that they just had so much fun and they made friends. And those are the kinds of connections that we've been seeing happen since the OCC started. And that's great. They leave CR with these connections. They take them with them. So it's been super fun. I think everybody who's been involved in the OCC, and it's probably partly post-pandemic euphoria, just being with people again, but everybody's a little bit euphoric about it. You know, we just all feel like it's some of the best thing we've done since we've been here.
That sounds really exciting for campus.
Yeah.
And so this event that you're talking about has passed, but is there another BioBlitz in the works?
Mm-hmm.
And where could people find out about that?
Yeah, so what we're shooting for is every fall and every spring. So the next one will be in the fall. And we have done them first week of November before. And part of that, it's a little on the late side. We're thinking it might be better to do it a lot earlier to catch some of the late summer stuff. But in the past, we've thought we wanted our students to have a little more orientation to natural science before doing the BioBlitz. But we're discussing when it would be in the fall. I think April is when it will be in the spring. It will definitely be some. We were going back and forth trying to avoid Easter and Earth Day And we ended up conflicting with Godwit days, which was a terrible idea. So I think it'd be better if we conflicted with Earth Day than Godwit days next year. So sometime in the fall, I'm not sure when, and then April in the spring. And by doing this, you know, it's essentially a way of getting a biodiversity survey of campus. You can go on iNaturalist, you just type into the search bar College of the Redwoods, and it just pops up every organism that has been seen by anyone ever at College of the Redwoods. You can get a list, you can get pictures, whatever. And that's really good information to have.
Yeah, I agree. That's really, really wonderful that you guys are doing that.
Well, it's fun too. That's really why we're doing it.
Awesome.
It's fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the students involved, get their hands dirty.
Exactly. Dirty hands are very important.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Karen.
Sure.
And thank you all for joining us so much on Focus on CR. My name is Ruby Cayenne, and we will see you next time.